Great. So lots of great questions, but very little time. So I'm going to try and make very specific questions. I want to start with Romy. There's a few questions. I've blended them into one question, which is, in this multicultural city, there's diverse health needs and priorities. So how do you ensure those voices are heard, and especially the voices of non-English speakers in forming the strategy?
Oh, that's a pretty tough question.
They're all going to be tough questions.
Yeah, no kidding. I think that there are already key folks already in positions of power, whether it's in schools or in community settings, settlement workers. And for the most part, I think that those are people who can... there we go. Those are the folks, I think, who can are the gatekeepers of that kind of spaces. In one case, we worked with a community in Abbotsford, particularly looking around domestic abuse and how do we challenge those notions in certain ethnocultural communities. And part of that was around how do we well equip some of the South Asian communities in talking about these kinds of issues in a safe and supportive environment, which meant that we had to provide them with the skills on how to do that. So it was about training others to do that kind of work. And I think that a lot of times when we talk about immigrant and refugees' health, it becomes really important that we are looking at our governments as well and what are they providing. And the recent cuts to refugee healthcare is astonishing. It blows my mind that we are universal healthcare in Canada and we are taking away the rights of healthcare for refugees. And unfortunately, it's not the refugees who are going to be protesting because they're in fear of being deported. My question to you is, where are the Canadians who are supposed to be protesting and supposed to be championing for universal health care?
Okay, so it's everybody's role. Great. So it's everybody's role, but groups like yours are going to be on them like a dirty shirt to make sure they do it. Okay, good. Patty, very specific question. A lot of interest in your stats, especially the various life expectancies by neighborhood. People want to know where can they access this information? Where can they get more information on the disparity index?
Well, we're about to post our balanced scorecard and make it public for people to see. And the other thing that we're working on in Vancouver Coastal Health, and we have a public health surveillance unit that's done some very good work, is developing profiles of all of our local health areas that we'll have. And we've actually published the one from the downtown east side, and this was reported by the province a couple of years back. That will all become available on our website. So we're starting to get better about making that data available. We haven't been great in the past, and we also need to share it with people like the City of Vancouver to help in planning. I should also say that much of the information comes from readily available sources of data like BC Stats. Some of the data that you quoted, Andre, comes from the Canada Community Health Survey. People can have access to that on the website. But I did want to mention, because I didn't mention it before, that in terms of data, we know that we have to do a better job in monitoring the health of our population. And one thing that we're going to be launching next year across Vancouver Coastal Health is something as a survey called My Health, My Community that will do a better job than the Canada Community Health Survey, which is a random survey of the population that looks at things like physical activity, weights, how many fruits and vegetables do you eat. But unfortunately, the numbers in that survey are very small, and we can't look at neighborhood level data. So My Health, My Community will be an opportunity to engage people across Vancouver Coastal Health and to ask a series of questions about health, about risk factors for disease and illness and community connectiveness and many other things. So I encourage you to watch for that. And as part of that, when you engage in that, you will get more information about the kind of data that I talked about. But yes, we do need to make that data more readily available, and we're working on that, and it will be coming to you soon through our website.
Great. Thanks. And so I'm going to try and squeeze in one quick question for everyone if I can, if we do 1 minute answers. So your biggest challenge, Trevor, is going to be answer this question in a minute or less. You've been at this for 3 decades. Are we making any progress? And don't use any bureaucratic mumbo-jumbo language.
In a word, yes.
Okay, thank you. That's what a WHO report should read like.
I think the most important progress we've made is that this idea, which started with really just some thinking and talking in Toronto in the early 80s and then in Europe, is now a worldwide, a global movement. And what we've done in part is to put health and cities back together in a way that they'd gotten separated in the 20th century, and particularly around urban planning. And if you go, for example, now to the Canadian Institute of Planners, to their website, they've got resource pages and tools and all kinds of things about healthy urban planning. It's on the global agenda. It's on the agenda of cities and towns and villages. It's not just about cities. In Canada, we actually call it healthy communities, and we do so for a very specific reason. A lot of places are not cities. So we chose to call it healthy communities. There are provincial networks in Quebec and Ontario and BC, some of which have been going for 20 years or more. So it's a long, slow process. And I always used to say, you know, is it a success? Yes, because of that. But the other answer is come back in 50 years or even 100 years, because we're talking about a long, slow process of change. Sanitation came in 15 years, but it actually the work on that really started in the 1840s, and it didn't really blossom until the 1870s, and the impact wasn't really felt until the 1900s. So we need to understand that when you do this work, it is not a shot in the dark. It's not a quick fix. It's a long, slow fix, but it's a much better fix.
And Linda, I didn't skip over you. I wanted to save your question because it flows from the larger one I asked for Trevor. There's been a lot of talk about the Aboriginal community needs specific measures, needs extra help. In your talk, you also said you want that, but how do you balance that with giving this extra help, this extra push, and not vilifying the community, make it look like, oh, here's the problem, et cetera? How do you balance that in a strategy?
Well, is this on? I don't know if it's on.
Yeah.
There it goes. Can you hear it?
Yep.
Okay, I can't hear it. Well, Anya, we're a really prevention-focused organization, and what I was just thinking about what your answer is, and I think there has been meaningful change for the Native community over the last 10 to 15 years, and a lot of that hasn't necessarily had to do with the health authorities. It has to do with the truth starting to come out about the residential school experience. So when you have an entire people who have this big dark secret and nobody knows about it and nobody believes that it happens, that once that came out, that made a significant difference. And because we've started to reclaim our culture, that has been such a huge difference, and that's why I call it culture as therapy. So I think the biggest bang for anybody's buck is to let the Native community lead the way. If we say that culture is important and we see the change that it's made in people's lives, then believe us. And really, urban people need to be heard on all issues, and we need to be consulted, and we need to be able to tell what our community wants and to help fulfill those needs. I don't think that our community is worried about people already have such stereotypes about us. If we say that, well, you know, some of us are alcoholics, some of us are overweight, or some of us have health, you know, whatever health issue, it's not going to make it any worse than it already is. So I just wouldn't worry about it.
So a plea for self-empowerment, very, very good.
Absolutely.
And last but not least, Andrew, I want to ask you, because you're the opera guy today, how do we ensure that arts are part of the Healthy City strategy? A couple of people have noted we haven't heard a lot about the arts and culture. How do we do that? Again, in a minute.
Well, I mean, this facility, I guess, kind of speaks from a university perspective how universities can do that. I mean, arts is such a wonderful point of both connection and enrichment for a community. I can't imagine it excluding the arts. But I'll give you the example from the public square. This public square initiative, we thought long and hard, how do we make it inclusive and how do we use the arts as part of that? So if you go to the public square website, which I encourage you all to do, you'll find there's poetry readings. At the summit, we're going to have a film festival. We're going to have opportunities for community organizations to put on displays, some of which I hope will be cultural and artistic. So my view is it's making sure that we include into the fabric of all of the community activities we do, the power and the enlightenment that comes with culture and the arts.
So we have many more questions, and we're going to leave you to
Can I just have one very quick
20
point?
seconds.
Yeah, less than that. There is a new national organization called Arts and Health Network Canada. And so just Google it, and it's about exactly those sorts of things. What's the links between arts and health? It's a very important issue.
Great. So many great questions we have here that I can't ask. We don't have time, but have the dialogue outside. And please join me in thanking Romy, Patricia, Linda, Trevor, and Andrew. Thank you.